Hello, welcome to Mastering 5th Grade Math. My name is Jason. In this lesson, we're learning how to multiply mixed numbers times a fraction. So we've learned how to multiply fractions times fractions. Now we need to learn what happens when we're multiplying times a mixed number, which might be something like 1 1/3 times 1/2, or 1 5/7 times 1/3, or something like that. So let's just jump right into a problem. You're going to find it's very simple to do. What if we have 3 1/2 and we're multiplying times 1/3? What do we do? What I want you to do is take every mixed number that you see and change it into an improper fraction. So for this one, 2 times 3 gives me 6, plus 1 gives me 7, and I always write it over what's over the bottom. So now I've transformed this into a fraction, and now when I multiply 1 by 1/3, I treat it exactly the same way as I've done every other fraction that I've multiplied by. I multiply the tops and I multiply the bottoms. 7 times 1 gives me 7. 2 times 3 gives me 6. So the answer is 7/6. You could circle that, but you always want to see if you can convert it back into a mixed number, because in this case you have an improper fraction. And your original problem has a mixed number in it, so let's try to change it back into a mixed number. How many times will 6 go into 7? Well, it can only go one time, with a remainder of 1, and I write it over 6. So that's changing it back into mixed number 1 1/6. So these two numbers, 7/6 and 1 1/6, represent exactly the same amount of material, the same amount of pizza or whatever it is. Typically you want to write it as a mixed number if your problem is given to you as a mixed number. So I hope you see now that when we're given mixed numbers like 4 1/4 times 1/5, really, we're not doing much different. See, a lot of times students, when they learn math, they see it so many different rules, but really, it's not really any new rules. All I'm telling you to do is change this into improper fraction, and then you multiply as usual. 4 times 4 is 16, plus 1, 17, you write it over 4, and you multiply by 1/5, same as we always have. And now 17 times 1 becomes 17, 4 times 5 becomes 20. And then this is 17/20. Now there's nothing else to do here because it's not an improper fraction, and I can't simplify this anymore, so we just circle the answer, 17/20. What if I have 1/8 times 2 1/2? Well, same sort of thing. I take the 1/8 right here, and I multiply. This becomes a mixed, an improper fraction. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5, and I write it over 2. So I just changed it to an improper fraction. Now when I have it in this form, 1 times 5 gives me 5. 8 times 2 gives me 16. I look at that and I see, can I divide top and bottom by anything to simplify it? And I cannot. So that's the final answer. So no matter if your fraction is a mixed number or not, now you know how to multiply them. What if we have 2/3 times 2 2/3? Well, you'll have 2/3 here. This we just changed. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8, and we write it over 3. And now we can multiply this. 8 times 2 gives me 16. 3 times 3 gives me 9. So we try to simplify this, but we notice that it's an improper fraction. So how many times will 9 go into 16? Well, 9 times 2 is 18. That's too many times. So this only goes one time. And so the difference between 16 and 9 is 7, and I always write it over the denominator. So 1 7/9. That is the final answer. So I'm hoping that by now you're starting to feel a little bit more comfortable with multiplying fractions and multiplying mixed numbers, because once you know the general idea, it's just basically the same thing over and over again. It's a matter of getting your practice. What about 3/10 times 2 2/5? I would have 3/10. And I'm multiplying by this. I'm going to convert this. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 2 is 12. And I'll just write it over 5 as I always do. And then multiply the tops. 3 times 12 is 36. Multiply the bottoms. 5 times 10 is 50. So I get 36 over 50. And I'm looking to see, is there a way I can simplify this? Well, I see right away they're both even numbers. So let me divide by 2 here, divide by 2 here. And what I'm going to get, 36 divided by 2, whenever you do that division, you're going to get 18. And 50 divided by 2, you're going to get 25. And I look at that, I can't really simplify that anymore. I can't divide top and bottom by anything to simplify it, so the answer is 18 over 25. All right, I'm just going to do a couple of additional ones and we'll be done. 1 3/5 times 5/6. And so I'm going to convert the mixed numbers. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 3 is 8, and I write it over 5, so 8/5. This is times 5/6. All right, so what I have here is multiply the tops. 8 times 5 is 40. Multiply the bottoms. 5 times 6 is 30. So I have 40 over 30. And that's basically the final answer, but then I look and see, well, I can simplify this. They're both even numbers. I could divide by 2, but I also know that I can divide both of these by 10, so let me do that. And then 40 divided by 10 is 4. 30 divided by 10 is 3. So I'm just about ready to circle it, but then I notice, hey, this is an improper fraction. Actually, this was an improper fraction too, so I could have done it there. But here I'm going to change this back. How many times does 3 go into 4? Only one time, with a remainder of 1, and then I always write it over the denominator. So 1 1/3, that's what I want to write down on my test or my homework. Final problem, 3 3/4 times 2/3, right? And so here, I'm going to multiply to convert. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 3 is 15, over 4, over this 4, always convert it like that, and we're multiplying by 2/3. And so basically I need to multiply tops, multiply the bottoms. 15 times 2, if you do that, you'll see that that's 30. 4 times 3 is 12. So this is the final answer, but I can, of course, see that this is a, I can do lots of different things here, but let's simplify it first. Let's divide the top by 2 and the bottom by 2. Actually, let's divide the top by 3 and the bottom by 3, because I know that 3 goes into each one of these guys. 30 divided by 3 is 10. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So I could circle that, but then I realized that's an improper fraction, and this was one as well. I could have handled it here, but I'm going to handle it over here. How many times will 4 go into 10? Well, 4 times 2 is 8, so it goes 2 whole times. The difference between 10 and 8 is 2, and then I can write that over 4. So I have 2 2/4. And then I look at that again, and I say, wait a minute, 2 2/4, I can divide this top by 2 and this bottom by 2. And so what I'll get is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So the answer, the final answer, is 2.5. Now in this last problem, there was many different paths to simplifying it, okay? Many different ways. I could have simplified this differently here. I could have done the mixed number conversion right here, right? And then over here, if you noticed, I got 10/4. Well, I could have simplified this by dividing top and bottom by 2 before I converted to mixed numbers. And then, anyway, no matter how you do it, you're going to get to 2.5 is what I'm trying to say. You get here, convert to mixed number, and then simplify the fraction. You're getting to the same place. You have freedom in how you simplify it as long as you do it every step of the way and ask yourself, can I do it any more? Can I simplify any further? Then, as long as you're doing the correct steps, you'll always get to the correct answer. All right, so this is basically a lesson in how we multiply mixed numbers times a fraction. We always want to convert our mixed numbers into fractions, so we can simply multiply the tops, multiply the bottoms. That's the simplest way. And then when you get to your answer, in many cases, not all cases, but many cases, you'll get an improper fraction. When you get that, you just convert it back to a mixed number. So make sure you understand this, work our worksheet problems, and then follow me on to the next lesson, where we're going to continue working with multiplying mixed numbers times mixed numbers.